Equip, and today we are joined by Wadeh, Jose here at Cobra. We are at the HQ facility, hanging out in the studio. We've got new DS Adapt family here on the table. Jose, thanks for joining us. And I mean, let's dive into this. What do we got going on with DS Adapt?
Brand new family for 2025 is DS Adapt. We're taking advantage of the Dark Speed name and using DS as an abbreviation. Still dark, still moody type of looking product line, but moving on to a brand new Adapt family name, which really speaks to being able to design for different golfers, being able to fit different golfers, and really bringing to life our brand new technology for us, which we're calling Future Fit 33, which I think is going to put the custom fitting world on tilts because it allows you to move from a true center in any direction. We can adjust ball flight, which is really cool.
Nice. And Wadeh and I, at this point, we've had an opportunity, since you've hosted us out here, go through some fittings, do some testing, and I mean, from your fitting, what was your impression of these guys?
Drivers were incredible. They felt really, really good. I ended up going into that LS model was more, took my eye. I like that smaller head. It just gives me more confidence. I don't know why, it just does. But I think for me, the coolest part about it all was that Future Fit 33.
Yeah.
Being able to maneuver in certain ways and try different things and see it happen straight away, and what it's going to do for my ball flight, what it's going to do for my consistency, what it's going to do for my speed, and really landing on a really good setting and turning around and going, this is it, and feeling very confident with it. It was pretty cool. And I think that with the Future Fit 33 setting, now I know what quadrant I'm in. Mm-hmm. It probably makes it more of like an 8-12 setting kind of situation. So it's not as scary as it sounds with the 33. Right. But it was wild to see the changes that went through.
Well, take us through that. I mean, when you first warmed up, what was your ball flight? What did it look like? And where did we take you through?
It sucked.
You know when your dog gets rocket ass and you're like, how am I meant to clean that? It's kind of how it started.
We were in the woods. We were deep in the woods.
But no, so it was going short. It was turning a lot further left than I wanted it to, and I draw the ball. Mm-hmm. And so on the screen, it's going to look like it was hooking, but in actual fact, it was probably just turning more left because I was aiming straight, where in real life, I'll aim more right.
Correct.
But it was going a lot shorter than what I wanted it to, and I just couldn't find anywhere near the middle of the face. So we went from I think it was the X we started on, right? So we went from that, and then once we went to the LS, it just suited my eye a lot better. And we went from spectrum in the middle to all the way over to the right.
To fade bias?
So we went to the A4 setting, I believe.
A4 setting was where we landed.
So we went 2 degrees flat and took 2 degrees, or 1.4 degree of loft of it.
Yeah.
Do you have all those settings memorized?
A lot of them, because I've fit so many people already.
Hey, that's
A5 is the flattest you can be. A4 is just below that. It's about 1.4 degrees flat and about 0.7 degrees down in loft. So really cool for you.
Yeah.
Stop the hooking.
So stop the hooking. I mean, it was too flat for me. So then we brought it back to A2.
1 degree flat.
1 degree flat.
Okay.
And it was 1 degree flat and 1 degree lower.
Right.
And then it just a little baby draw pipe. And the cluster, perfect. The dispersion was that. Ball speed was good, consistent. Carry was great, so I think the carry ended up being around 270, 268 or something, which at sea level for me is really good. I'm like a 154 speed kind of a guy, so I'm not a fast player, I'm a tempo player, but it was definitely pretty good in regards to where we started to where we finished. So that video when we release it is going to be a really good one.
Do you think now that you're adjusted or found a setting that helps guard against your miss, that you're going to have the confidence now to stand over tee and just say, I can just free swing.
Yep.
I don't 100%. Have to worry about it. Because you know how sometimes when we're not warm or we're not in a good place, you kind of put the guardrails on.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to take some club head speed off. You're going to put the hang on, swing on. And now when you feel like you're into a driver that fits you, you can just really just be freewheeling, right? And hopefully now start to get like in a groove and hit the longest drives that you may hit in a long time. And I think that's what we're saying about Future Fit. I mean, there's 4 drivers here.
Yep.
You just got to find the one that matches your eye, the one that matches your ball flight, and then adjust the weights, find the shaft, but then use the Future Fit 30 to really dial you in. And if you do that, I think everybody's going to be better off in dispersion and in confidence.
And to answer your question, confidence with that driver would be sky high if I went and played golf right now.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
so
it.
Felt great.
You're going to have to check your pockets before you leave today. There might be a head in there with it.
I'm pretty fast.
It's interesting too, because when I was doing my testing, Wadeh and I have very similar miss. We're pretty close to the same speed. We are inside, up, and miss left.
Okay.
And he landed in an LS head. I landed in Max K, that 10,000 MOI, super forgiving, stable head. And I mean, it was a really, really cool experience to go through.
Right.
And for his eye, when we were on that 2 degrees flat setting, the visual component for him, he started to try and fix it because it was a little too flat, little too open.
Correct.
So the first couple of swings in that flat and kind of visually open setting for him, he started to flip it and hit it more left.
The supercomputer started working, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It looks flat, it's going to go right. Let me use my talent, because you have fast hands, right?
Yeah.
And you start turning it over. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
But then when it looks correct to you,
I can keep everything in its position and just let the club head do all the work and just rely on my swing.
Yeah.
What was it about the Max K head that attracted you? Was it the looks? Was it just the stability? What was it?
For me, when I sold it, I'm going, man, this looks like it wants to go left. And I hit a couple of swings. Start direction was, on my intended target, moving a little bit left. We put it in A5, 2 degrees flat, standard loft, and the dispersion just tighter than everything. Visually, I really liked the LS, and I like the story of the adaptive weighting system as far as the difference between the 9 degree head and going into that 10.5 head. And just so everybody that's watching this kind of understands what we're talking about, adaptive weighting. Run us through that real quick.
Adaptive weighting is Cobra's way of saying we take each head and tune it for different golfers. Even in the same model, in the X and in the LS, the 9 degree models have what we call power bridge. Power bridge is a beam that doesn't touch the ground, the face, or the sole or the face, but is pushed as far forward as possible. And that's going to give you a lot of ball speed. That's going to give you a lot of low spin. And that's, for people who pick 9 degrees, that's exactly what they're looking for. But we also know that when you're picking a 10.5 degree, you're probably looking for a little bit of launch, a little bit of spin, right? And a little bit more forgiveness. So we actually take the bridges out of the 10.5 degrees and we opt to put 6.5 grams of more weight back in the head to drive up the launch, drive up the spin, and give a little bit more forgiveness. So really, while we're showing 4 drivers here, we actually have 6 drivers, right? Because there's 2 in each of these. And then, of course, in the Max K head, you're pushing all that discretionary weight to the back. And then in the D head for draw, we push all the discretionary weight to the heel to help that person square up the club face a little bit easier. But that's our adaptive weighting. We're adapting it to different types of golfers and their needs so that we can better suit people.
Nikon Cool Shot rangefinder. Stabilization mechanism is fantastic. The scope is fantastic. It's in my bag. It ain't going nowhere. Guys, go buy it, enjoy it, scope it out, see it, hit the target, and then hit the green and go from there.
Scope out the scope.
There you go.
I like it.
But yeah, Nikon, it's a great thing. Go buy it. Nikon.com or fairwayjockey.com.
Boom. There it is. And I had kind of pre-qualified myself into being in the LS head in that 10.5 because I love the story. I love that shape. And performance-wise, using Future Fit 33, we had it in a really good place, and I was happy with it. And if I would have left with that driver, I would have been happy. And then we started to expand testing a little bit. LS worked better for me than X. And so already in my head, I'm going, okay, I'll hit the K just to check the box. It's a new product. We're going to test it. And then I put the K in my hand, and the very first swing with it, I went, ooh, okay, that's a little different. And then we put it in the A5 setting and flattened it out. And then it was just like the heavens opened up and angels were singing and ball speed came back up. Start direction was awesome. And then ended up being the exact same carry that I had with the LS. So, at that point in time, I, got into a wrestling match that didn't last long with Andrew because, he is a giant human being. And I didn't take one home that day, but Christmas list, that's
on the list?
It's on the list.
I think we can make that happen.
So, and Wade, fitting that we did with another product that I want to talk about in a couple minutes, he had an aha moment with another experience that we went through today at HQ here.
Cool.
But Future Fit 33, jumping from driver, also going to be available in Fairway Wood and Hybrid, correct?
Correct.
That's
and this
awesome.
is where I think it's really going to shine. I mean, obviously in the drivers, you expect it to what it did for both you guys. But imagine this. I think one of the hardest clubs to fit in your bag is always going to be your fairway wood.
100%.
Yep.
Totally agree with that.
And once you find a fairway wood, you typically have that for a longer purchase cycle than any other club because it's the lowest lofted club you're hitting off the deck, right? So in fairway woods, I think one of the inherent things that's a problem is a lot of people need flatter lie angles.
Yep.
And it'll tilt that spin axis just a little bit to the right, and now you can really start to see what a neutral axis is on a fairway wood. For years, before adjustable hosels came along, I was at a company that was really good on tour, and we were heating up fairways to make them flatter all the time. You would see fairways on tour with burn marks on the hosels, right? So now you don't have to do that, and you can get 2 degrees flatter out of it. And I think it's really going to help a lot of people with their fairway wood game. And that goes with the hybrids. We've been glued in hybrids now for 2 years, and we're putting it back in because when you ask people, why do you play a utility iron versus a hybrid? Well, I couldn't hit my regular iron. The utility iron is a little bit lower CG. I love it. And the hybrid always goes left for me. Well, not any longer. So now if you actually play a straight to a fade shot with your iron, you can use the hybrid Future Fit 33 to tilt that spin axis so you can have the same entry angle into a green and kind of match your iron game and really learn how to gap that long game.
Yeah, so I know you said that the fairways is what you're excited about with Future Fit. It's the hybrid for me.
Yeah.
I am on record to saying I hate hybrids because I can't keep them straight. They go left and even more left for me. When I hit them, it's amazing, but when I miss them, it's not amazing. So for me, the ability to use that Future Fit 33 hosel and make it work is what I would be most excited about, because it's another category that I can bring back into my thought process, where previously it was always, I don't want anything to do with it, don't even show me. I don't want to know.
And you know, people talk about Future Fit, and it's so wide in the 33 settings. You said it earlier. Once you find out what quadrant you're missing in, you go with the opposite quadrant. And now if you just pick 2 or 3 out of there, direct opposite to bring you back to A1, you're only going to need to try maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 settings at the most. But those fine-tuned little, people always ask us, why do you have so many? Do you really need that many? Do you really need something that's only 0.3 degrees of a change versus 0.7 of change versus 1.5? And what we're finding is, a couple weeks ago, I got to go work with the tour team and filming our commercials and doing our photo shoot. Now working with Ricky, Lexi, and Gary, and other players who are becoming part of the family, you realize that they don't use the outsides at all. So for most golfers, where you're going to use the outer circles and use those adjustability, for the better amateur, it's going to be the one inside that. And for our tour pros, it's the ones that's the tightest. So when we talked to them and said, what would you change in your ball flight? They would point at an inner circle. So now we just go to the opposite side. But if you think about that, that's a nice change in measurement for them, especially when it's going 300 yards downrange. So that's why we have so many. People are always going to ask, why do they need these little things? Well, it's the fine tuning that counts. You move the big one, like you guys both went to A5s right away, which is the flattest, and then you could love that, or you could want to dial that back a little bit, because it is a big change.
And I ended up in the inner ring, right? That was the setting.
The inner ring.
Yeah.
That makes you an inner ring person. Yes.
You're just that good.
He was an outer ring guy.
I'm an outer
I'm outer ring too. I'm actually B6, so I'm adding loft and making it flatter, which you could never do in our drivers back in the day. All of our drivers were either straight down the middle, or if you added loft, it would make it more draw bias. And that's
everything went up.
Everything is guilty of that today. In most fitting sessions, if it's a single cup link, you're tilting to one angle, and you can't separate loft and lie. And we're happy to be able to do that now.
I think you're at our HQ was like 2 months ago, showing us all the new product. And I remember when you showed Future Fit 33, and I was like, what, Jose, what is this? Like, what are you doing?
Now he's a believer.
I was like, what? No. And then when we kind of went through it, I was like, all right, I get what you're talking about. Now that I've hit it, it's so on point.
It's hard. You cannot deny that it's going to help a lot of people.
Yep.
Either that, or we're going to have even more people picking up pickleball, because that's growing, right?
Yeah.
And for the Wades of the world,
Way to the world.
we got a QR code
Yep.
Yeah.
on the driver head, on the fairway, on the hybrid, if you're curious about.
Yeah, and what is that?
The Wades of the world.
What does that mean? Well, Ways of the world are the guys who are geek squads and want to know what's going on and want to figure it out. For those of you out there, that means like a menu at a restaurant, you put your phone on it and it'll bring you to an app. And in the app, it actually gives you an introductory video, which is really cool what it can do.
Yep.
Then it'll give you a right-handed, left-handed chart, and then it'll actually give you a blank chart, because numbers and alphanumeric scare people like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We made one chart blank, and all you need to do is touch the phone where your ball flight's going, and we'll make the recommendations for you to try. You're going to eliminate 29 other settings and only try maybe up to 4.
Cool.
And we've tested this over and over again. We probably fitted already over 500 people.
Wow.
Because we want to make sure this thing really works. We've fitted everywhere from our tour staff and amateur +4s all the way up to 20 handicaps and 25 handicaps who just said, is there enough range in there for me to fix my slice? And we've been able to do it, and really excited about that.
And speaking of like technology, I think Cobra's pretty much ahead of the fog from a lot of other OEMs when it comes to tech, and I think I'm safe to say that. But
Thanks for that.
I got to hit your 3D irons earlier today. I know that's what you wanted to kind of get to.
Yes.
And so
That was a cool fitting to watch.
yeah, that was a huge moment for me in regards to understanding the technology that you've packed inside of that head. Outside of the fact that it's 3D printed and what have you, you've got those tungsten weights that are on the inside. The shots that you hit good were good, right? And every shot
They should be good, right?
every shot that you hit good with any other iron is going to be good. It was the mishits where I was like, what? How did that even happen? I was hitting 7-iron in there. We had the green out to about 170 yards. And if I mishit I think I hit the CB, right?
Yep.
When I mishit the CB, 15, 20 yards short.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mishit the 3D, we're talking 4 to 5 yards short. And it's still going,
Still on the green.
same
hopefully.
line that I want. It's either on the green or it's green side.
Right.
And that's where I was like, this is a true game changer across the yard, where if you're not wanting to get into something like this, then you don't want to get better at golf.
3D printing is what we call additive technology, additive manufacturing. We're making things that you couldn't make before, whether it's casting or forging or even milling. You can't make a truss or the inner works that we're doing there, right? That type of stuff you can only make through 3D printing, one layer at a time. Those irons, I'm not sure if anybody explained to you, a set of irons takes a full day to make.
Yeah.
Right? We can make a plate of 32 at a time, and it takes 2,600 passes of laying down powdered metal and then laser sintering it, hardening it, fusing it to the other metal. 2,600 passes, 24 hours just to make the 3D printing.
Wow.
Then we shave it off the tray. We put the 2 tungsten, 50-gram tungsten pieces in. We put the plates over, weld those, polish them down, make the grooves, put on the chrome, laser etch, and engrave what we need to in paint fill. It takes a while.
It's a pretty easy process, it sounds like.
What's easy about it is,
no big deal.
what's easy about it is there's no tooling. So
No tooling.
if you're forging, you're going to make a tool. If you're milling, you're going to make a tool. If you're milling, you can take a block, And casting, you're definitely going to make tools.
Right.
We skip that. In fact, what's great about 3D printing, imagine us when we're doing 3D printing putters for tour. We can have 5 different putters on the tray, printing something different. So it doesn't even have to be the same thing. No tools needed, just small adjustments, right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of 3D printing,
cool.
is it lends itself to designing things that you can't really do today. In this case, what you learned today is you can actually have a player's looking iron that's as forgiving as, in our family, a Tech or a Tech X.
Sure.
The forgiveness on it was wild. I can't get over how, and once again, I know we're in a studio and hitting off a mat and all of that kind of stuff, but it was crazy a chunkier shot, whatever it was, a thinner shot, they all pretty much went the same distances, and they didn't deviate off this line of my intended line.
Well,
it was just cool.
Talk to me about the feel. So it
felt
so
great.
It's a hollow iron, right? There's lattice inside, but it's still hollow, and the lattice makes it rigid. Did it feel like, not harsh, but did it feel like a forging or a muscle back?
It felt like a forged iron. It felt like a fully forged iron. It felt very soft. It felt comfortable. It looked very great at address. It felt very great when I hit through the ball. When I had the CB in the hand, it looked great at address, but when I missed it, I was like, ugh, you know, that feeling you get. When I missed the 3D, it still felt nice. I was like, I know where I missed it. I felt where I missed it, but it didn't feel bad.
Right.
It wasn't one of those cold moments, you know, when you're in the cold and you miss hit a blade and you're like, oh, my hands are like, you're never going to get that moment.
What's your current gamer now? What kind of iron was it? Was it a hollow type of iron, or was it a forging cavity?
No, it's a forge. It's a KM700.
Okay, great club. By the
great
way.
iron. It's a beautiful iron.
Yeah.
But once again, it's the other thing that I would say is that because this has the 3D has the look of a blade, but the Sonic guts, but the inners of a very helping iron. I didn't have to swing very hard. I could just smooth it and get it every time, where with my KMs, I have to put the speed on it to get the distances that I need.
The CGs of your KMs are a little higher than ours. So the secret for 3D printing is we lattice the structure inside. We're saving 100 grams in the center, which allows us to use those 250-gram tungsten slugs. We put them heel toe, which is really low. So that's how we get the low CG. It makes them so easy to hit, even though you're not swinging hard, because the CG is always going to be below the golf ball, right? And then now they're spread heel to toe, so it's so solid when you do hit it off center, like you said. It does its job to make it more forgiving than what it looks like. And that's the key here, right? Everybody wants to play a muscle back blade if they could. I would, but I can't hit one worth a darn. So to have something where I can feel like it's a player's looking iron in my bag, I mean, I used to be a +1. I thought I was a really good player. I'm getting old. I am now a struggling 6 handicap who's happy to play clubs that still look small, right? Otherwise, I'd be playing some chunky looking thing.
Well, we saw with him, I mean, he was almost 20 millimeters low on the face. Launch was almost identical. Spin held. Apex height got to the same height as pretty much the perfectly struck shot.
And in that shot, I was smoothing all the other ones, and my speed came down, but distances were the same, if not a little bit more. And Kris is like, "Why don't you just put one on this?" And I thinned it, and obviously you add more spin when you thin it and what have you, and but it went the exact same distance as what I needed it to. And
I was impressed by the launch.
The other thing that I will say is this doesn't the 3Ds don't feel I'm going to get a jumper out of nowhere.
No, you won't. You know why? Unless it's like a wet lie or grass, you won't get a jumper because the faces aren't flexing at all. We made sure that when we studied it in FEA, that's finite elements analysis with our engineers, that it behaved like a muscle back. It was rigid. It was not moving. So there's no flexion for this type of hollow iron. Most hollow irons flex like a drum. We wanted this to sound like a muscle back, and in order to do that, you have to make it rigid.
Yeah, I loved everything about it. Truly did, honestly, I truly did.
There's a bunch of cool stories coming 2025 from Cobra. Future Fit 33, awesome story. I mean, just the beginning, tip of the iceberg for 3D technology. And I mean, is it safe to say that the Limited that's coming out sometime a little bit later in the year isn't the end of the 3D printing story?
There is more to be done in 3D printing, I will say. I think in not just iron categories, I think you could see other categories we could venture into. I can't divulge everything we're doing, but I could say that you'll be happily surprised when the next thing comes out. We'll give you another aha moment to come here for.
Can't wait.
And kind of experience the next generation of 3D printing. But I think the future is really strong there for us.
I'm excited to see how these do at retail. I'm excited to get them in the hitting bay and get some of my players testing as well. And I picked up on something you said earlier, that you got to work with the tour team and players joining the family. So I have a sneaky suspicion there's announcements that are coming down the pipeline, which I'm excited for. And I mean, with that, Jose, this has been awesome. We've had a great time. I mean, Wade definitely had some aha moments. I tested some things that I was like, Ooh, that's cool.
This is your
And
first time to our offices, isn't it?
First time here.
Yeah.
First time seeing what you've got
like
here.
the studio?
It's
It's
a
pretty cool.
really rad space. That mural of the Cobra is
This
really,
is like
really
the ultimate
dope.
man cave.
Yeah, like complete transparency. If you got rid of my wife and kids and said I could have a loft apartment, this is what it would
This
look
is
like.
what
There's
it
a
looked
bar.
like.
There's a bar right there. We've got a
Put a
putting
trundle
green
bed
here.
in here. Call it a
There's
day.
a screen behind this wall where I can chuck games on and what have you and hit balls against it. Like, I don't know what else I would need.
We were talking about where to do this podcast, and we could have done it at the bar, but it's too early to have beers here yet, so we didn't opt for that.
He's an Aussie. It's never
Yeah, the
too early to
Australians,
have it.
like, if we're going to do it at the bar, we have to be drinking. And like, well, we'll do it over here then. I'm like, all right.
No, this has been great, man. And as always,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you for
out. It's
having us
great
out.
Thanks,
having you
Jose. It's
guys.
always good to see you, man.
Appreciate
And
the love.
Say with that, we'll wrap up the interview, and we'll see you guys next time.